This is the third part of the Anahata Chakra workshop. My name is Vadim Zaporozhtsev. Today is the 20th of October, 2013 year. So, before we go any further, if anyone has any questions, and someone sit down at the computer, maybe the part-time students have some questions there. I am ready to answer them. Go ahead. Okay, if there are no questions, share your feelings from the practices. Does anyone have anything to say? Yes.
When you said to introduce the enemies, I didn't introduce anyone.
Great, wonderful. They've already evaporated.
I think I just wanted to hug everyone. And there was absolutely no aggression.
And that's the point, friends. This urge to hug, and the urge to treat enemies as a misunderstanding, it's the same, friends. Still enemies. In fact, our bad karma. What is our bad karma? In fact, our own stupidity. What is our stupidity? In fact, a misunderstanding. And I want to know what kind of. Do you know where it is? What is it? You understand, right? Here. It's like, walking with a torch and looking for darkness. So, where is the darkness there? Not anywhere, right? So, who else has what? Yes, please.
At the first practice, when
Here, then our part-time students will not hear these. They will scold me, and rightly so.
Angelina Bezmenova, morning group. The very first practice, when we can start the heart chakra like this. And the partner's heart responded in my mind as if I was listening to my heart. That is, there was no difference at all. And then, when we switched places, he listened, he heard my heart when I was catching a feeling. I've missed that beat already. I just have it like this, as if there was some kind of response. Here, that is, the continuation of its own, somehow here is the rhythm. Well, something like a sense of unity.
Yes, that is, the microcosm. The macrocosm begins to unite into one. You begin to feel the breathing and the rhythm of the universe, the beating, the heartbeat of the cosmos. And it is clear that you do not know, you know. Do you understand? Well, as a whole. Thank you. Who else has what? Please come here.
Maria Mamontova, her International Hidden University, Vega Group, and there was, well, the first one was just one of the first exercises when I put my hands on each other. Here I had some kind of stupid, strange feeling that it was like my hands, well, not mine, but I was looking at them from the outside. Here, then, when I also put my partner's hand just on my chest, this was the feeling. At the beginning, I felt the heartbeat. And then it's like the muscles are walking. And here is a feeling, as if you feel the internal organs to some extent. Here, well, when there was a moment when you suddenly stand, in my opinion, with each other's backs.
Yeah.
And there are enemies around. It's so simple. Well, it was just a representation that, as it were, the light from the chest of the partner and you, that's how the enemies are like this. Well,
there isn't. So meditation, may all living beings be happy, yes, and cordial. So, is there anything else anyone can tell us? Feels like it, please. And no one has a feeling of pressure left after practice. That's what's stirring there. Just here I am. Still, wait, you will come home, you will go to bed, I assure you. More. Then there will be more in the reviews. That's what I'm talking about, that when I felt like I was being burned on both sides. From palm to palm, there seems to be such a burning ray. And there was a very powerful visualization and hexagrams of the hexagonal shape all the way. Well, that's it, okay with that. I decided to keep the rest to myself. Secret practice. The principle of secrecy. Okay, who else has what? Please.
Anna Shestopalova, International Open University Group. That's how Angelina said, when we put our hand on the partner's chest at the beginning, the feeling of a heartbeat, and the feeling that I feel his center as if through myself. So strange, I mean, yes. And then, in the process of practice, it feels as if the sphere in the chest is expanding, light, warmth. And when they did something with their hands were cold, frozen, and at some point it felt like it was burning their hands. It burns my hands. I opened my eyes at some point when yantra was right in front of my eyes. And so the yantra was directly imprinted in the eyes, and the pressure seemed to go.
Great. Someone else will say, please. Come on, speak out, speak out.
Yulia Romanenko of Vega Group. During the first exercise, there was a feeling that somehow their hands, yes, were applied to another person, that his hands or even some kind of warmth was on my side. And during the practice, there was this feeling of vibration, small, 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 and this inner vibration, it was transmitted to the external body. That is, the body vibrated a little bit, and the Yan mantra, that's what we were saying inside. She was inside in a very, very loud voice. And from this loud voice, the heart region was revealed. And after practice, it seemed that there was such a big, big hole from which streams of light were coming.
Yeah. Great. So, again, please, let's speak out.
Marina Elyasova, I am a free listener, and I want to say that during the exercises, when we put our hand on the partner, one of the first, on the heart area, at one point, I began to feel very clearly how the beating was going, and at that moment, I seemed to shift my perception, and looked at both of us from parties, and there was a feeling of unconditional love and wonder at the miracle of creation in general.
Yes. You remember, it was said there, the ability to leave the body. Remember, right. Here's a piece. No, in all seriousness, friends, yes, great, yeah. Oh yeah, so, someone else. Let's go ahead and speak out, friends. The feeling that you are suddenly looking at everything from the outside. You touch, they touch you, and you kind of look at it from the outside with God, you know. Yes, it is unclear who is concerned. And in general, you see, this is the concept. Where am I, and where am I not? Usually we have a very clear idea. Here I am, and here I am no longer me. And then hop, and everything starts to merge. Please.
It is Xenia, the Vega group. At the beginning, I concentrated on this chakra, and at the end of the practice my mind was going, well, into someone's who.
Partner.
Yes, that is, I was no longer concentrating on my chakra. I had, well, not what I wanted.
Yes. Yeah.
Something was taking me there.
Attracted.
Yes, attracted.
So, great. Has everyone spoken out? Please. And part-time students, prepare some questions there. Now we will answer the questions and go further. Yeah, please. Ivan, shoulders on Vega. Well, at the beginning of practice, again, there was such calmness. Well, again, I tried to concentrate here, on the hut. And so, then it shifted more. Or rather, even so. I almost immediately moved, well, as it were, to managing a partner. Here. As if the energy had lost exactly on the hand. There, in the heart of another person, in the heart of a girl. This constant movement of energy between the two centers was felt even with my eyes closed. And I just kind of could see with my eyes closed. Here I do not know how to describe it in general. Yes. This is a very strange, in fact, ability, superpower. Yes, there's a lot out there, friends, in fact, what else awaits us in yoga? That's a lot. Yeah, that's the feeling. Yeah, great yet. Who's what? Has everyone spoken out?
According to the body, so instantly jumped and relaxed.
Yes. There's more.
It went everywhere.
A lot. In general, there are many very good things in the South. But look, friends, all these very powerful practices, like Yasa Yoga, Pair Yoga. There is only one significant drawback of these yogas. A very big partner is needed. Do you understand? Here are the poor part-time students sitting, watching and licking their lips. This is it? Once again, I repeat this idea, yes, evolutionary, that first you are alone, first you are in the stage, then you become one. And then you start looking for like-minded people. Here is an open yoga university, in fact, was conceived just as a place where once you have been alone enough. You already need like-minded people from a position of self-sufficiency, right? So that's wonderful. Now we will give questions, if any, to part-time and full-time students, and we will go further. We still have a lot to consider today. Please, are there any questions?
Well, I have such a question. Here again, forgiveness when you see, it seems like your body is not yours, and it's kind of creepy enough.
Here.
How?
That is? Yes, that is, I say, this is a good question. In fact, what is called a sausage is when we start doing practices and do not fully believe that there can be anything there. And then, when it starts to happen, we somehow feel uneasy. Is this really so? But I must say that then you get used to it quickly enough and already treat it in a working order. And finally, you remember, yes, these are all practices, of course. There is another such aspect, well, in particular, of those practices that you have done. I talk about it all the time. The keys to your superpowers are with the people around you. The keys to your superpowers are in the hands of your partner. And, let's say, you can turn on your superpowers, which you don't even know about, either yourself. But after spending a decade of practice there, or you can do it like this, with a click of your finger. Due to the fact that your like-minded people will simply turn them on. This is how the universe is made, friends. Here. And of course, you have to use it, well, in a good sense of the word, but you have to use it gradually, get used to it gradually. Gradually. In other words, it should all be very harmonious. That's it. So, come on, who has questions about theory in general, or about the practice that we did, from part-time students, maybe. Or from you. There isn't. Nothing is clear. Well, in general, it's useless to ask questions after practice, because I'm not up to questions in myself. I usually, such a reception. By the way, if you don't want to answer questions, tell me. There will be questions after practice, right? And that's it. Then no one will open their mouth. So, wonderful. Let's move on. Look at the thing here. So, the heart center. The center of such, unconditional love. Oh, I just love it. And this is his very strong point. And what's the downside? Jealousy. Jealousy. In fact, jealousy is truly a ferocious thing. I know that some schools of the yoga, where, therefore, fast methods are practiced. A person could come there and be taught. If he was stupid, angry, selfish. Well, that's, stupid, right? That's what. But if he didn't have jealousy. Sometimes they are, however, by chance. I do not know how it is, a violation of the law of nature. Is that why? Because just as the power of the medicine of the heart center is enormous, the reverse side is also terrible, jealousy. That is, and the accompanying, such emotions associated with betrayal. Well, imagine there, the one you trusted betrayed you. In particular, of course, it is monstrous when there is, say, some close person there. You counted on him everything. And he betrayed you. And do you know how they say such an expression? Like a knife to the heart, right? A knife to the heart, tweet. Or how? The knife is driven into my heart to the hilt, and turns, 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 right. But if you, God forbid, I don't want to wish it on you. Let you not have it. So, you will face jealousy or betrayal of loved ones. This is perhaps the strongest negative blow you can kill. In other words, a person simply dies himself. Because this is where his being is all, and here it is in the most sacred. You know, here's another one. There is such a good saying, he spat in the soul. You understand, right? In fact, analyze the sayings, turns of speech. It's not necessarily are Russians there, well, there are English others there, and so on. And in fact, as a matter of fact, you will find responses to this knowledge everywhere. Because yoga is not something artificial. This understanding is as everyone has. So, of course, this is an extremely strong blow. This is betrayal for a person, but as if from a person's side. This is the expectation of betrayal and jealousy. Let's figure it out with you. What is jealousy? Jealousy is when you think that, let's say, what should belong to you begins to belong to someone else for some unknown reason. That is, my wife should be with me, she is with someone else. But jealousy is not necessarily like that between a man and a woman. There is a very different kind of jealousy. There is, let's say, jealousy at work. I have to hold this position, and here someone is trying to claim what belongs to me. It's like this, you know, here's a very interesting feeling, that on the one hand I am, as we have already said, I exist most strongly manifests itself through the heart center. And therefore many practitioners on research what is our self call for it to concentrate, first of all on the heart center, since it is balanced and better understand what is our higher self. It is the consciousness of energy, it is knowledge and feelings. Here. And at the same time then, look what kind of thing happens. Our higher self, it certainly does not consider itself to be what it really is, but it considers itself to be its manifestations, or its manifestation, which is called prana. Prana is, in fact, consciousness and energy in such an undivided form. And it is in the heart center that it is most easy to realize what prana, consciousness, energy is in an undivided form. Therefore, in fact, when you say there, I have a soul here or there, some imply that you have your higher self right there. No, your higher self is beyond space and time. But here the manifestation of your higher self, or prana, manifests itself very strongly. And that's why, and since the higher self identifies itself with prana, that's why it seems that my soul is right here. The soul hurts, yes there, or something else. Right here. So, it turns out that we begin to identify ourselves with prana in the heart center to a greater extent than with everything else. And in its pure form, when prana manifests, it is perceived by us as all-encompassing love, joy, happiness, serenity. Here. That's it, yes, that's it. But at the same time, if we have someone or something, let's say our husband, or our wife, or our job, or something else, yes, that we are jealous of, then we stretch out an associative connection. So, firm our heart center to this object or phenomenon. And in fact, depending on how this object or phenomenon behaves, we begin to feel either very good or very bad. If you have a good relationship with your wife, then you love her, and she gives you happiness, joy, enjoyment of every second of life together. Strictly speaking, Why did the Absolute invent a family life? Not for you to swear and argue there. I don't know, there were scandals in the kitchen. No, he's absolutely not a pervert, no. He has made family life so that you are in the best. It was the joy of being that they felt better, they came to a sense of their nature faster. But if, say, your husband or wife starts betraying you there one way or another, it turns out to be a very scary thing. The strongest prana, as it were, is divided in half. On the one hand, you attach it to the person you love, and intuitively think that there is no difference between you and him. That whatever you think and feel, you should think and feel it. And he, the scoundrel, begins to behave differently. Or her. And here is this dissonance that you consider yourself, well, as you know. Here's another one, you know, here's a good expression, that this is my wife there. The former broke my heart. Remember, yes, there is such a phrase, that you thought you had one heart for two. And she, the bastard, split it into two halves, and pulled her half, right. And the connection has remained, as if the heart is already tearing out of you. And it's extremely painful, friends. This is pain in its purest form. It's a pain. You know, here. The pain of jealousy, it is sometimes even stronger than physical pain. Because it's a physical pain. How would it be possible to mentally block it? There, reflect on something else, try to forget. And then any reflection will again lead you to your own prana, to your second half, and to how it means it has gone somewhere, right? That is, to this one. To this discord. And it is clear that if you have experienced this feeling at least once in your many lives before that you were betrayed. And you could probably be betrayed only in one case, if you betrayed yourself. In other words, betrayal later is in fact, well, in karmic terms, a reflection of those laws that you once generated. That time, having experienced betrayal, friends, this is such a strong imprint, yes, that he has been through many, many lives. Therefore, jealousy, friends, is one of the most difficult feelings to work with. Extremely difficult, friends. And to overcome jealousy, friends, is in fact to make such a grand leap further in spiritual terms, which literally then makes all desires feasible. And, strictly speaking, for this reason, it is believed that here in the heart center there is this grantha, that is, such a kind of difficult to overcome knot. Here we read what Harish Johari wrote there about the difficulties associated with the heart center. Well, as a matter of fact, the deeper interpretation is different. It consists in the fact that if you are able to overcome the reverse side of the manifestation of the heart center, only then will you unravel this most complex knot of Maya. That is, well, here again, friends. If you encounter jealousy for real, it will probably be an emotion that will overshadow all others. Fear, anger, rage, everything will be subordinated to jealousy. When can you encounter? Yes, and jealousy is very hard to overcome inside yourself. It sometimes takes years. One single one told me that her husband left her. He's a good guy, isn't he? Here. As they say, he left without declaring war. For 3 years, she could not eat, not sleep, but like a zombie. Went to work, left, came. That's it. Life was for her. Well, she just disappeared life. Here. And only then many, many more. Well, how is it? She really has good karma. She got into one of the yoga schools, a fairly powerful yoga school. And she tells me that she only let her go there for the third year. After that, well, she started to look at everything as if from the outside. And according to her assurances, there is nothing worse than jealousy. Nothing at all. Therefore, friends, there is such a rule, the rule of loyalty and devotion. With all the strength you have, never betray anyone. Remember how this Saint-Exupéry is, right? You are responsible for those who have been tamed. Sometimes it is better to remain faithful and die because of this loyalty than to betray in this life and in the next life. To face the reverse side of betrayal, to get jealousy, and firm this it means to suffer. Therefore, there are, once again, two methods in yoga, how you can walk the path of yoga. I have already mentioned them today. This is the method of yoga wife understanding wisdom, and the method of bhakti yoga, the method of devotion. Sometimes bhakti yoga. By bhakti yoga is meant the feeling of love, that is, the method of love. This is not quite correct, friends. Because you can be devoted to someone, love him at some point, dislike some, hate some, but still be devoted. Do you understand? And it's considered aerobatics to be loyal. Not to love someone, but to be devoted. If you are lucky enough, say, in India somewhere else, to encounter a real powerful yoga school, a real one like this. Not the new model that was built there now in India, but still of those times. And remember that if there is even the slightest suspicion of your infidelity, if there is even the slightest suspicion that you are a traitor, then you will not be allowed to take a cannon shot at any serious yoga. They won't even communicate for any money. Therefore, friends, once again, to work with the Anahata Chakra here, to sort of reveal it, as we said, right, in order to manifest it, so that it manifests itself as a natural joy of being and love for all living things. There should not be a hard imprint of jealousy before this, because your jealousy, as if it pulls everything together, closes. And on the hut, the chakra wants to open up, but jealousy pulls it down. How can you be jealous? Jealousy is if you betrayed someone in a previous life. People who have never betrayed anyone never have jealousy. They just don't understand that this can be. Do you understand? Therefore, there is also a very powerful way of working the Anahata chakra. Analyze it. Analyze your attitude to those or to what you love, on the subject of to what extent you have jealousy. The more jealousy you discover inside yourself, it will say that to a greater extent, you were worried that you were once betrayed. The more you've been betrayed, the more likely you've betrayed someone before, too. Therefore, if you want your heart center to automatically manifest without effort, make it a rule never to deceive anyone, Well, not to betray. Do not betray. It's not like someone is counting on you and you know it, right? And then hop. You said. How is that? How did they drink it? This. Love is gone. How is that? Tired of the sun, yes, that is, at that moment you confessed that there is no love. Yes, that is, she waved her pen, and that. Yes, or vice versa, on the part of the man there, I do not remember, there is also an analog. The same situation applies to any activity. That is, if there is no jealousy, the Anahata chakra will begin to manifest itself. And as a result, all the advantages that you can extract from it. First of all, a person with an open heart, he is joyful and happy, it's always nice to be with him. He is open, without a second thought, cheerful and pleasant to communicate with him. Wise, with a sense of humor. He shines like the sun, people are drawn to him. And I especially like these texts, pay attention, it's all about women. Give us a piece, will you? What kind of food, that means there is purum purum, will become irresistible for women? That is, the heavenly virgins. You know, it was touching in these Indian texts that all people were divided into Brahmins, women foreigners. Found it. Anyone. Find there a chakra not rupana, or any there are a few words at the end. Here. So. Look here. Therefore. Listen, what are you doing there? Only 3 lines in the yoke texts have reached us there. And you can't find that in these lines. This is not war and peace. Now. Hides it from us. You don't say. In the end, we will give sources for self-development. Primary sources. No, it doesn't seem to be here. Well, anyway, we need to eat suckers. You know, I really like Shiva Sami. Let me read this again from the Shiva Samhita. And the Anahata lotus is located in the region of the heart. Its color is deeply blood red. The seed, that is, the bija mantra, in 12 petals, like Hagahahatatha. In this lotus, there is a flame called Banalingam. Meditation on it? Meditation on it acquires objects of the visible and invisible world. The Lord of the Lotus is Pinaki, the goddess of what? Those who always meditate on this lotus in their hearts are desired by the heavenly virgins. Friends, you are about to reflect, you will be desired by heaven. Guys, do you hear? Yes, heavenly maidens. And look, the symmetries. Yes, he will receive invisible knowledge, but immeasurable knowledge. He knows the past, the present, the future, has the ability of clairvoyance, clairaudience, and can travel through the air. And then it's also interesting. He sees initiates and goddesses known as yajini. Very often our friends are Hindus, they are very surprised when they are told that. You know, but you have not only yugas at all. But we're one. Don't you remember? Yes. Here is a gradation on people, foreigners and women. Yes. Here. So, look here too, in continuation of this topic. Therefore, it is clear that these texts were primarily aimed at men. I talk about it all the time. That's how historically it has happened that most, 90 I don't know how many % of everything, has reached for men. In our yoga school, it is generally stated that female teachers should be born or wake up in our era. That it was very difficult for them to be born there in other places and at other times. But now you can make it so that. So girls, wake up. Here. So look here. Well, in the future, yes. If you are looking for a wife, imagine you are eating a man, looking for a wife. Who should I take as my wife? A reasonable question, yes. Well, first of all, what is marriage for anyway, as they say? First of all, the return of a sacred duty is the birth of children. It is clear that your wife should give birth to children, love them, raise them there and take care of them. But it kind of goes without saying. Actually, both men and women are for this. And then, well, any kind of children can tremble, smart, beautiful there. And so on. They list all the wonderful qualities there. And which one to choose? What wife? Which woman to choose? Someone says, I want a smart one. Someone says, no, 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 beautiful. Someone both smart and beautiful. And so on. Again, there are a lot of all sorts of combinations. Now imagine the moment. You chose a smart and beautiful, and in every way wonderful woman, and she waved her hand at you. You understand, right? And it's very strange, but you can read this in the Dharma Shastra, there in others, which is clear, a faithful woman is needed. Why? Because it is believed that no matter how she looks, a woman adapts to what a man wants to see. If she was ugly, she will become beautiful. That is, in fact, she was never ugly. She's beautiful for someone else. But if she happens to be with you, sooner or later she will look like you. You know, there's a saying that long couples start over time. Again, she was a stupid fool nothing. If she gets into an academic environment, a woman, she is very good in this regard. And the question is that the wife must be faithful. 3 jewels. How many jewels are there? A horse, an elephant, there's something else, and a faithful wife. Read the legends of ancient India. Not a beautiful wife, pay attention, but a faithful wife, yes. And the question is, but how to determine it? Is it true or false? Well, no, the faithful wife is not written on the forehead. Yes, yes. Here. That is, they are needed. This is where Sith, superpowers, friends are needed. Superpowers can be recognized at a glance. And that's what we just read, that the one who works with the heart center meditates accordingly on the Anahata Chakra. He just sees the initiates and goddesses known as the one. Here she is and the wife, as they say. Okay, all right. It's humorous, but not funny when it's really love. Love is poisoned by jealousy. It's like, you know, a fly in the ointment. And the question, but just imagine, was covered by a wave of jealousy. A wave of jealousy swept over him. We didn't even imagine it. I have met people, I have students, they are also like this, you know the type, imagine, self-sufficient, ascetic. On one leg in the Himalayas, stood there for some time. Well, that is, he kept himself in check. Here, and then, that's it, bang bang, and wife, and he can't help himself. And now you already know, at least in the first approximation, the general theory of yoga. You, as the future, so to speak, these very luminaries of yoga. What advice would you give to a person who has jealousy?
Trust.
But how can I trust? I trusted you that time too, so where? Left without pants at all. Yes. That is. It will turn out. Well, look, there's actually two. Firstly, what to do is one thing, and secondly, how to do it. How to survive it. You understand, right? That is, to let go. Well, yes, now I'm going to die, and he's free. To understand that person, to understand his reasons.
Maybe analyze your past experience if you remember, and how to work out what you once did.
Yes, it's already very, very good, it's getting closer. Look what a thing. In fact, if you were faced with some kind of situation, then you had some kind of blind spot of the brain. On the obvious signs that this is possible, you did not recognize them. That is, it is clear, first of all, it is necessary to analyze yourself. That is, not only did you create the situation yourself, that you faced jealousy, another conversation. What is it with you that this system error has occurred, and you really contacted the person who betrayed you? What didn't you recognize in him? That is, of course, the very first thing is to try to understand the other person. And why did he betray you, right? Or, well, so to speak, if you're there. Or maybe he can betray. And the other one. Another medicine. Well, who can tell you what kind of medicine? Hope is absolute. No, but this is practical. Yoga. No, well, like the South. Of the South. Speech. Steam room. The steam room too. Travel. No, look, remember, meditation, let there be all living beings now. Notice how tricky this meditation is made. If you do it, you have an object for whom you are doing, can go from friends to neutral, to enemies. From neutral enemies to friends. And you don't care, do you? So that's how to survive jealousy. Burning, yes, when up to the most, this is the most, a dagger up to the hilt. This is certainly meditation on the heart centers, the exact opposite of this feeling. What is the exact opposite?
Love.
Love, trust, openness, wishing happiness. Here. What else would you light and advise? Well, of course, pair yoga, yes, meditation, everything that we are doing now. It really helps, friends, it really helps. To begin.
The fact that you once said in one of the lectures that you need to meditate before the emotion arose, respectively, first of all, and not allow situations that will provoke you while you are weak.
Absolutely correct, yes. That is, look, if you suspect that, let's say you are jealous, and you suspect that if jealousy captures you, you can't do anything about it, then you begin to wage a guerrilla struggle first. You don't directly encounter these things. You kind of avoid those, well, provocations. That is, as it were. Well, do not provoke yourself to the fact that, you know, if you encounter, say, one or another phenomenon there, then you will wake up. You start to avoid and gain time. During this time, you begin to work with your heart center, and over time, these tight grips, the grip is hard, gradually begins to, well, relax. In other words, the main thing in this respect is to gain time. In general, if a person does yoga, then time works for him, no matter what he encounters. The main thing is to win this time, and not to break firewood, not to kill everyone. Do you know how many people are killed in a fit of jealousy? A nightmare. The horror. And moreover, very sane people suddenly lose control over themselves, and kill themselves and others, and a lover, and a wife. And in general there is still here. That is, now another question. But what if the situation is reversed? You are faced with jealousy, you are not jealous, but say, your husband or your wife, or someone else is jealous. What should I do then? Yes. Here they are. At one of the field seminars, we had such a wonderful practice, when if something suddenly goes wrong, it is necessary. Falling, yes. So, face down and say to myself, I'm fine, I don't have any problems because I died. Yes, sometimes to save, yes, please.
It seems to me that all these tips that we have listed before, when we ourselves experience jealousy, they actually really fit people when they are jealous.
Yeah, good.
Checked. In other words, you have no idea what it is, it's funny. That is there, maybe they are conceived. But it's like karma. I'm sorry.
Well, actually, yes. Started because of possible reasons. If I'm not serving. What's that? Am I giving a reason? If there are reasons for real jealousy, let's say maybe I'm thinking something about it. This is the power of consciousness. This is the power of imagination. It, finishes everything in terrible pictures. The wife was late at work, and there's already an orgy in her head, with the participation of his wife. Here, someone else has something. Well, in the same vein, I wanted to say that to show as much as possible, to open the situation to a person so that he sees that there is still no reason for jealousy. It's easy to say,
That he wants to accept jealousy.
On the contrary, it seems to me that even more will arise if you know as much as possible.
Not necessarily. Everyone has their own.
Trying. A man that you are devoted. What's up, part-time students? Write to us, what do you think about jealousy? If you have to accept, it seems to me, the situation. Accept it. In the comments, in the hall. Let's take turns. You will tell. The part-time students did not hear.
It seems to me that it's easy to work both from the standpoint of the macrocosm and the microcosm, right? That is, you do everything in your power and explain to a person when it's at the peak of the fortress, when he shouts there or something else. But how? You are this.
Already shot.
Calm down, then sit down, talk normally, clarify the situation as much as possible. What you think, what you feel. For my part, should I work out meditations there or something else? That is, there is a macrocosm to work with and a microcosm visualization.
Come on, over here, over here. Come on. Share.
Forming your own experience. Yes, it doesn't work, but I understand the case.
Mine works. No, yes, let's do that. There are many universes, let's take turns. And you too, come on.
The correct remark is that you need to wait until it all settles down and find the most favorable period in general, in order to at least submit something to your head, because at this point it's useless at all. We just need to retire as soon as possible, and everyone in general, here, otherwise it will be bad. And then, in general, it seems to me that it is necessary to explain in this way. But you understand that this reaction, it does not depend on me nor on my behavior, nor on what you know or do not know. That's your problem. That is, if a person is aware of this and wants to work with the problem, something can be done. But if he's like a drug addict, he doesn't want to, you can't cure him. Here, in my opinion, the same stuff is just, seriously, if a person says, yes, I have it. I can't do anything about it. I'm proud of it. You can't do anything to him, even if you die.
No, well, yes, that's another conversation. Yes, please.
Leave the place.
Yes, it's better to go out. Get out.
Well, honestly, I have such a position. Let's say that all the problems that exist, well, as if they happen to us, yes, they actually change if we change ourselves. Situations change. Perhaps at some point we were jealous ourselves, and the fact that a person is jealous of us returns to us. Maybe if we analyze it too, look at it, somehow get rid of it, then we won't have this boomerang coming back.
Well, it's like this, actually. Please. Come on, speak out. This?
Just in addition to the machine statement, as it were, that if a person turns to us in such a situation, with such a facet, that he is jealous of us, yes, then this is essentially our negative karma that we are faced with this. That is, it means that somewhere out there, either in this life or in previous ones, we were either jealous ourselves, or we did some such situations. In other words, it would have been a good karma for us, yes, we would not have encountered this. So, well, as I said, to work here, well, as I see it, only from the inside, if with a microcosm, it's some kind of visualization, meditation. If it's with the macrocosm, then it's with a person. When he is as calm as possible, when he is adequate for a conversation, then talk, explain, trust, develop common trust. Find some points of mutual contact. That is, well, again, like everyone else, there may be different situations.
Wonderful. Yes. Yeah, come on.
But, for example, meditation on a partner as an absolute. They say that he reveals himself as the absolute. Here, it is possible thereby, maybe he can get rid of the need.
Yes, friends, actually, but this is a separate topic. Of course, it's best. Yes, please. Yeah, now.
I believe that there is such a thing as communicating with a person not directly, but first, well, how to say, introduce the person yourself, and communicate with him, explain to him. And there is such a thing as a person, in principle. He hears when you communicate with him, well, I mean, like on the phone, right? That is, only he is not there on the phone, but you imagine that you are communicating, like a visualization.
I,
Then he's already things, and it seems to me.
that you have broadcasts. That you don't have a broadcast. The halt is only now. Well, let's wait for now. Thank you, yes. We are waiting until it connects. So, you listen, feet. That's who will perform the feet for us with these broadcasts. Well, did it work? No. Oh, that's it, wonderful. Who else has something? Come on. Yeah, please. Love. Are there any firm fellow students? Yes. And is it possible to put an equal sign between he doesn't love me and jealousy? Or she doesn't love me and is jealous? Well, you see, he loves me or he doesn't love me. And this is actually a very good one. You can work with this normally. Why? Because, yes, he doesn't love me, but he is devoted to me. Or he loves, but faithfully. You see, here is the factor of devotion in this sense, deeper than the factor of love or jealousy. That is, if there is a loyalty factor, then the superstructure, you know, I love, I hate, I'm jealous, I'm not jealous. It's already at the top. I say again, why loyalty? Here too, again, I'm going back to Bhakti Yoga. We will definitely have seeds for it. Sometimes it is said that in Hakta, it is love, not friends. There are a variety of methods in hacking. You are an object to which you are devoted, or you can love him, or dislike him, or scold him, but be devoted to him. Because everything is coming, and in fact, if we talk about married couples, then this is the couple where there is mutual devotion. Sooner or later, everything becomes good for them. But the couple who do not have devotion, falling in love quickly disappears, love too. I mean, it's like this, right? Only loyalty remains. Do you understand? And well, I ask so. Who else did you want?
And then it passed.
Yes, of course, yes.
I madly adore practice, and will become of the yoga of falling in love, and yes, I probably don't remember the details right now. If I have jealousy brewing, then I try to look at a woman through his eyes of a man, or I remember the meditation I am her. If it concerns jealousy from the other side, but I try not to allow this, and always try. Well, as if honesty is important, and it is important to agree to do, well, your other half. And if there is a factor of consciousness of a new consent, then well, somehow here are the moments of jealousy. They are somehow here.
Yes, friends, in fact, look, yes, I asked you all to speak out for this long discussion. This is actually the hardest question. You remember, yes, that the heart center is critical for modern civilization. On the other hand, in order to master it and use practices that accelerate yoga there, it is necessary to work with the negative manifestation, of this chakra. And, well, first of all, you remember the previous ones. In the previous chakras, we said that there are different methods. Well, first of all, the whole chakra that is higher, as a rule, controls the chakra that is lower. And if you pinch the previous and subsequent chakra, then at least something can be done there. That's on the one hand. But there are, as you know, more fundamental views on, but if you like, life and attitude, or the danger of future jealousy. Imagine, yes, if jealousy has already arisen, and the situation is already developing, that's one thing. And imagine you don't have, say, a husband or wife right now, or there isn't any favorite job, or something that you would be jealous of. And here there is one, as the vaccination practitioners say. You don't know, maybe you're jealous, or maybe you're not jealous at all. But do I need to be safe? It is necessary. And you begin to build the right attitude for the rest of your life. That is, you immediately give yourself such an attitude, yes, that you understand the nature of things. And here it is correctly said here, let's say, from the practice of yoga, falling in love, if we are talking about a man and a woman, then you understand that, in fact, as if my wife is the absolute itself, the goddess Sri herself, who in her mercy can come through one body, then through another. That is, then your emphasis shifts from the other person, because the other person, he is not guilty of anything, right? To a higher superstructure, to his higher self, and to the absolute himself. And that's why there is such a long period of Brahmacharya. Again in India, they're in the cradle. That is, in fact, early marriages in general were not welcomed in Vedic times. That's the age of 24. That's when you can think about something. And so that you prepare for a variety of situations, including the situation of possible jealousy. And they give a variety of meditations there. Well, this is another topic, of course, another yoga. Here we just don't have time to touch it anymore. But as with any emotion, friends, you remember that, first of all, you need to buy time, and secondly, do not let the emotion capture you. Because it's one thing, you feel jealousy, and it's inside you. And another thing is, in a fit of jealousy, you grab a brick there and start killing everyone right and left. Yes, both the right and the guilty. Or do some nonsense. Because a woman in a fit of jealousy can do such a thing, which is generally terrible. Or a man. And as a matter of fact, well, how would you remember? That's the most important thing, it's at least a few seconds to gain time. Because, like any emotion, the strength of any emotion is in its suddenness. You're just not ready. She picks you up and carried you. That you didn't mess up. But even if you don't break the firewood, you will still suffer, terribly suffer. And of course, all the practices associated with the Anahata chakra, such as wishing happiness to all living beings. But everything we did, it will, how should I tell you, distract you from the aspect of jealousy. And push directly the opposite of jealousy, openness, trust, love. That is, there is such a rule in yoga that it is not to fight the negative, but to strengthen the positive. Because the more you think about jealousy, the stronger it will be for you in these. Tighten the swamp. And here it is just necessary to fight not with the fact that I am not jealous, no, but that I am open, I trust. But you see what's the matter? It's just a declaration, it's hard. Some feelings of emotions are also needed here. And here, including all these exercises that we have done with you today, they weaken the grip of jealousy. And it's already easier to transfer. And the next factor, you understand, yes, that there is such a thing as karma. The fact that you are experiencing jealousy is generally a matter of your karma. But there is a good thing about karma. It ends sooner or later. You will not suffer from negative karma for a second more than you deserve. Not for a second. This is impossible. In other words, roughly speaking, time works for you. Sooner or later it will stop. That is, and here's the question of buying time. Although a person, when even the very idea that he is there eventually is, well, she will disappear, this thought does not reach him. Here. Okay. Okay. Yes, please, yes.
And here, well, how would they say that you need to avoid the situation, right? What if you are jealous of the person who provokes you, and until you're ready to face them? Here, how to determine this moment, because it happens that you kind of, well, you don't have as much jealousy as before, and it doesn't seem to be very strong, but there are some weak things like that, and at this point, it is already possible to accept the situation. For example, the husband says that he likes some girl, she is beautiful and so on, but it hurts you a little. That is, and, in the future, does this have a cumulative effect? Is it better to avoid it, as it were?
Well, look, yes. In other words, generally speaking, there is a radical remedy, a radical one in general. It is known from the yoga of falling in love. Actually, it's the most radical remedy. It works either as a series of vaccinations before you have your closest person. It's working. It's tested, friends. It works, and even I tracked it. It works here. I told you, yes, they're with people who are in yoga there, and so on. In other words, it turns out that jealousy captures you, but in a light form. If you had an injection before, inoculated with a certain meditation and a certain practice. And the practice, there really is a correct understanding of what? Well, there are a lot of factors about the nature of a man, the nature of a woman there, and so on and so forth. But if we are talking about a man and a woman, the same applies if jealousy concerns, you know, something else. Work there, power. People are jealous. In fact, not necessarily to a person, but to something else. Here and, well, it's a little different there. All right, come on, I'm going too far away. We're running out of time. Yes, please. And here. Ivan, a colleague, I'm about jealousy. Here I have such a consideration, not even considerations. I thought about it more at the time. And in general terms, where did civilization come from? In our society, strictly speaking, such a thing as jealousy. In general, according to various books, in general, I found all sorts of explanations, including such roots of jealousy, I believe, lie in the medieval Middle Ages, when there was a hunt for sorcerers there. Does this mean the jealousy of a man and a woman? Jealousy. Jealousy of a man and a woman. It's enough just to calculate. Here in the yoga of falling in love, there is such a concept as a mechanism for protecting procreation. And he explains almost everything. If I have my woman, and this woman is not faithful to me, then, apparently, she will either not give birth to children from me, or she will give birth to another. That is, accordingly, when I die in the next life, I simply will not get a human body, but I will get a frog body for someone. I don't like it at all. And, actually, this is, you know, such a mechanism of self-preservation. And why would I have such a situation like this? I don't want this situation. So that's where the conflict situation starts, right? In other words, strictly speaking, everything is much more complicated here, but not more obvious. Here. As for the general jealousy, it is somehow connected with the manifestation of such generosity, or vice versa. That is, generosity is the opposite of jealousy, as it seems. And you can fight it. As if not. Well, you see, there is still a factor here. You know, what other factor is there in jealousy? Let's say resentment. Resentment is not related to generosity. I thought it would be like this, but it happened differently. Okay, Rook, yes, please.
Jealousy, it turns out, is it somehow connected with lower chakras? It turns out wandering through the chakras. Fear, anger, jealousy of some kind.
Yes, look, that's the danger. Look, right? Look, here is the strength and weakness of the Anahata chakra. If you are in the Anahata chakra, you have love, it overcomes anger, lust, and fear. And if jealousy pops up in the Anahata chakra, you have a different bouquet of fear, lust, and anger. You understand, right? Well, that is, yes. Here? I mean, it's kind of a creepy mix, you know, right? That is, and why it is considered, generally speaking, it is generally recognized, that if a person got to the heart chakra, and coped with it in a little bit, that's it. He can relax a little on the spiritual path. In other words, it will be easier to move on in this regard. And that's why this particular my node is located here, the most complex, the most difficult. Here. Okay, all right. What else do we have? Yes, please.
I have a question about working with the help of practices. Yes, paired and so on. And when there is a process of purification at the level of the causal body, that is, such painful emotions, do they help to cope with jealousy? Or is it necessary somehow for some period of independent training, and then classes with faster methods?
Well, in different ways. Generally speaking, once again, in the fast yoga methods, in particular in the yoga of falling in love, there are practices of inoculation against jealousy. The most powerful. Checked, friends. This is verified. This is exactly the kind of knowledge that, in general, well, checked. Even today, in any case, I can talk about it quite, well, seriously. But, like any disease, vaccination should be done long before this disease has occurred. You see, when the smallpox is already mowing down Moscow, it's too late to do, you know, any of these vaccinations there. It's too late. Here. Therefore, the situation is the same here. It is not always possible to use practices, vaccinations. Because, as a rule, a person, is not inclined to think that this could be personally in his case. We usually have a better opinion of ourselves than we really are. Here. And then it's too late. It's always late. And of course, if there is an opportunity to do a vaccination practice, it's generally super, friends. This is what helps in general, even in the most terrible cases, even if you were then betrayed by everyone who could betray. And you should have such jealousy that you should have killed everyone there. Oddly enough, it helps. A couple of people told me that too. Because, well, it's already big enough. But if there were no vaccination practices, and you have already been captured, then everything is much more complicated. An order of magnitude more complicated. Here again, jealousy, right? Your prana begins to identify the other person. Your higher self, which identifies itself with prana, begins to identify itself with another person. And this other person goes somewhere, your natural prana divides in half, and collides foreheads. The pain is incredible, I don't want to live. And the question is, until this flow of prana detaches from the other person. And he was too much soaked in it. But once again, it's soaked, it will eventually come out. In general, time heals everything. You know, there is a black saying that a person gets used to everything, even to a loop. Twitches, stops. Oh yes, it's so gloomy, of course. Yes. Such a tricky one, yes. And is it worth taking back traders then, if suddenly they ask? This is generally the most important question. I'm finally hearing some good questions. Yes, friends. Goodbye. Farewell, and you will be forgiven, do you understand? Let's have a chance. Always and always. Always reserve a part of your heart, even for traitors. Reserve it. That is this. Well, that is, then in the future, your internal installation will be decisive. After all, what is pain, after all? Pain is when your prana is pulled away somewhere, divided in half, and collides with foreheads somewhere there. And where is it dragged, and how is it divided? With what? Yoga tells us, with the help of associative connections. All right. And how to form the necessary associative connections and not form unnecessary ones, which will then lead to conflict. It's the right attitude to life, it's the right values in life, it's, well, the right philosophy, the right views. God forbid there will be at least one wrong one. The wrong view, it is exactly, and then forms the wrong associative connection here. This, you know, is a question of inner stubbornness. And as if in this regard, you have to be extremely kind and, well, understand this whole situation, yes, in order to be flexible somewhere. If, on the contrary, you are stuck inside your hatred or rejection and so on, then in the future, you will forget about this person, you will forget about this jealousy. It will already be the 10th life there, but this installation remains. We form an associative connection through which prana flows, precisely by our attitude to life. So we decided that it should be so, and here it will be. In this respect, you know, it's a very insidious thing. A very insidious thing. That's why it is recommended to forgive. To forgive. And how to give a chance again.
And trust. And trust.
Here. This is the hardest part. Is there a limit there? Once or twice? It's an open question, friends.
It's just that the person himself is already painful, well, as it were. Well, that is, to know that you can be given, if 1, 2, 3.
No, not yet. You know, when you burn yourself on milk, you blow on water.
All right, water, milk.
No, not friends. But you know you too, you're not confused, right? In general, everything falls under the first, second, third principle of yoga. You have to be kind, but you can't be an idiot. Well, if you see that, you know, the scam has arrived again at the source. The thimbles are back, aren't they? Then, well, a little bit. Yes, please. One more time. I have just written idly, or rather they do not forgive traitors. You know how it cut me now, just that I don't forgive traitors, I forgive. As a matter of fact, there are no traitors, there are just other people. No, well, again, forgive. See, that's how you can forgive them. You can truly forgive them if you begin to understand them. And if you begin to understand, you will begin to understand why they did so and not otherwise. You'll sort of get into their skin. You will go, and you still know what it's going to come down to. The answer is already known. The behavior of any traitor, absolutely anyone, will be reduced to his ignorance. He's just an idiot. Well, I was in the dark. And remember, there is such a phrase, it is very yogic, that God forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And when you realize that, yes, someone betrayed you there, you begin, well, at first, to think that this is the center of world evil. Here in the embodiment of a particular person, right? That is such. Yes, That is the principle, right? That is. Essence, here he is in the flesh, right? Now crush it. Remember that, right? Good defeated evil and brutally dealt with it. So, and you start? At first, your attitude is ambivalent. In this world, you begin to divide into good and evil. You are white and fluffy, and you're traitor. The personification of universal evil. Of course, you want to burn him at the stake there or something. Well, it depends on these tastes, right? Preferences. Here.
Вы начинаете исследовать, а собственно, почему он поступил так. Как бы залазите в его шкуру и понимаете, что в его микрокосмосе есть какая-то система ценностей, система того, чего человек хочет, чего не хочет, и вы начинаете ее исследовать. Ну и она его заставила что-то делать. Он же не сам по себе сделал. Была какая-то мотивация, какой-то внутренний кнут и пряник для того, чтобы предавать. Он же не ради там любопытства. Так, а не предать ли мне сегодня с утра кого-нибудь? Вот, да? Вот. И вы начинаете исследовать. И рано или поздно, как учит нас йога, вы приходите к тому, что он находится в неведении. Просто в тупом неведении. У него где-то есть, опять же, слепая зона разума, которая спит. И под действием этой спящей зоны разума у него что-то в голове не сходится, ни в интеллектуальном, ни в духовном, ни в каком смысле. И вот он делает такую траекторию по жизни. Но самое страшное, друзья, начинается потом. Вы начинаете анализировать эти мотивации, этот кнут и пряник, и реконструировать дальнейшую жизнь этого человека. И знаете, к чему вы приходите потом? Что его ждет ужасное возвращение его же дел. Вот почему говорю, это хорошая фраза. Прости им, Господи, сами не ведают, что творят. Прости им. Понимаете? Они уже сделали, что надо, да? Вот, а ты говоришь прости им, потому что вы видите, к чему это для них лично потом приведет. Во-первых, закон кармы, он необратим. Во-вторых, вы знаете, что за предательством идет ревность, а жить в ревности и в страхе — это кошмар. У меня вот одна знакомая Единя, вот, она потом уже мне сказала, что чем плоха ревность, да, вот такая необоснованная ревность, никогда вас уже кинули там и бросили, да, а вот еще нет. Вы фактически превращаетесь в тюремщика своего, скажем, мужа. Вы не живете, вы все его оберегаете, как бы он куда не удрал, да, там еще что-то куда-то не делал. То есть вы перестаете жить своей жизнью. Вот, и вы понимаете, что вот сейчас вы увидели спектакль, когда вас предали, но пройдет какое-то время, и вы будете наблюдать спектакль, когда тот, кто предал, будет страшно мучиться. А вы не хотите ему зла. Понимаете? Поэтому даже в голове, все на свое место. Вы понимаете, что там не был центр вселенского зла, а там был центр вселенской глупости. Вот. И вот это, как ни странно, очень хорошо помогает справиться. Вообще, знание закона кармы иногда успокаивает. Да, прошу.
Получается, что если простить предателя, хорошо, но опять-таки вопрос второго, третьего возвращения и доверия, то есть имеет смысл только если устранено неведение. То есть ты можешь сразу выяснить с человеком, как ты знаешь, где была эта слепая зона, и если он продолжает в нее упорствовать, то смысла нет доверять, я права?
Не, я еще раз повторяю, друзья, если лохотронщики вернулись...
Устранено неведение, если он не понял, то, по-моему, смысла в этом нет никакого, правильно?
Ну да, это понятно, да, то есть, это очевидная вещь.
Имеется в виду, что если он осознал, тогда да.
Вот я и говорю,
Нет,
если
есть
он
такие...
осознал, просто вернулся и...
Мне кажется, что ведь когда человек тебя предал, ты можешь просто понять причину и не обязательно впускать его в жизнь свою, чтобы он с тобой контактировал. Ты просто можешь его спокойно отпустить. Если он захочет общаться, ты можешь с ним пообщаться, но не обязательно, если это муж, опять выходить за него замуж.
Нет, друзья, да, здесь масса еще других моментов, да, то есть самых разных моментов, действительно, да, там их очень много, там, и так далее, и тому подобное. Но вопрос не в том, вопрос, знаете, тяжело время нас поджимает. Вот почему все эти знания йоговские, это обоюдоострый меч. Вы не сможете накачивать себя йоговскими методами праной и обретать сверхспособности, когда у вас, как бы говорится, внутри есть злость, обида, ненависть, ревность. Чем больше вы себя будете накачивать праной, тем эти чувства будут сильнее вас внутри расти. И это превратится в такую страшную ношу, что в конце концов вы либо отбросите ревность, страх, ненависть, злобу, мстительность, либо перестанете заниматься йогой. Потому что, опять же, вы еще практику сделали, вас еще эти эмоции сильнее, внутренние там ненависти, страха там и так далее, да? И вот невозможно, надо либо отбрасывать вот этот образ жизни, либо не заниматься йогой. Потому что йога будет продолжать прану, прана будет поступать по ассоциативным связям, делиться, сталкиваться лбами, и все сильнее и сильнее. И вот в этом ключе есть так называемый третий принцип йоги. Он, как, кстати сказать, тоже ключевой в работе с ревностью. Значит, этот третий принцип призывает нас всеми силами бороться с страданием в окружающем нас мире и параллельно, одновременно всеми силами не допускать страданий в нашем внутреннем мире. То есть, ведь что такое ревность? Это, по сути дела, страдание. И только лишь если вы принимаете, скажем, третий принцип йоги, вам и даются те или иные практики, быстрые методы. Почему? Потому что с помощью быстрых методов, иначе вы накачаете себя страшно праной, а она куда пойдет? На ваше внутреннее страдание. А если вы внутри себя неволей изъявите, чтобы в вашей внутренней вселенной страдания не было, то чем больше вы будете заниматься, тем вам будет хуже. Вот. И, ну, собственно говоря, как бы здесь уже никуда не деться. Я, кстати, тоже, вот я просто, знаете, я не могу называть фамилии, там, имен людей, хотя это реально существующие люди. Я достаточно давно в йоге вот наблюдал, как вот эти вот метаморфозы. Вот один был случай, у меня тоже товарищ там один был, вот его на политику пробило. Можете себе представить. Начал заниматься йогой, жил спокойненько, ну, тихий, нормальный человек, жил спокойно. Вдруг прибегает с горящими глазами. Вот там, в правительстве казнокрады, там, революцию надо делать. Там этот президент узурпировал власть. То есть, знаете, это самое... Ну, то есть, вот, знаете, вот такой вот явно, вот по нарастающей, до маниакальности у него это все доходило. Он, кстати сказать, пранаямой занимался так, без отдыха. Да. Вот. И все уже там, где там уже он... Ну, просто, знаете, вот это доходило до какой-то вот просто точки кипения для него. Он ходил там с горящими глазами, да, знаете, вот ему дай автомат Калашникова, точно, бог знает что устроит. Причем с чувством выполненного долга. Вот. А потом в какой-то момент, как вот он уже в дальнейшем мне сам рассказывал, вот эта вот боль, как бы от осознания несправедливости всего творящего, она уже стала настолько ему крышу сносить, что в какой-то момент он осознал третий принцип йоги. Он понял, что если он сейчас вот от этого стиля жизни внутри себя не откажется, он просто свихнется. Что накачивать себя праной и нести в себе злобу, это саморазрушительно. Просто саморазрушительно. Вот. И, надо сказать, у него достаточно хорошо все получилось. Он как бы так, попустило, короче, да, как отвалилось. Знаете, то, как он... Но в этой связи, знаете, другой еще фактор очень интересен. Друзья, буквально последние 3 минуты и все, мы заканчиваем, потому что... Вот в йоге управление мыслью, вот если взять йога-сутру Патанджали, управление мыслеформами, оно определяющее считается. То есть йогу Патанджали определил как чита врити ниродха. То есть чита вритти, ниродха, то есть это, как бы по-русски-то перевести-то, остановление мысли, неконтролируемого мыслеобразования. Вот так можно в свободном переводе перевести. И вот очень интересно, как приходит эта мысль. Ведь ревность, она ведь не сама по себе ревность, это мысль ревности. Сперва приходит мысль ревности, потом захватывает вашу эмоцию, а эмоция начинает высасывать из вас прану. И эта мысль с эмоцией, как большая пиявка, начинает раздуваться, раздуваться, раздуваться. И вы себя уже вообще потом не контролируете. И вот здесь надо либо не допускать мысли в голову, либо не допускать соединения мысли с эмоцией. Как только мысль с эмоцией соединилась в голове, все. Это действительно пиявка, это такой паразит высосет из вас все соки.
Ну, за какой-то вот такой мы еще не изучали, как мысль с эмоцией разъединять.
Ну, мы бы еще много чего не изучали. Вот, да. Так, ладно, но это уже тема другой сказки. Да, совсем. Шахереза. У нас, знаете, это серия семинаров по чакрам, это как 1001 ночь, понимаете? 1001 чакра. Вопрос есть еще, друзья?
Ну, вот,
да, прошу.
То есть, вот если ревность, есть ревность, которая просто базируется на нашем чувстве, что вот нашим проявлением что-то угрожает, а есть ревность, которая базируется на механизме защиты продолжения рода, то есть не только мне, а вот самой жизни, продолжению жизни.
Да, друзья.
То есть это гораздо более глубинная и сильная эмоция, и вот можно ли ее с позиции там вышестоящих чакр увидеть или и вообще вот.
Давайте начнем по порядку. Вы помните, что нет плохих и хороших эмоций. Есть уместные и неуместные. В определенных моментах жизни, в определенных обстоятельствах ревность также необходима была нужна для нашего выживания, как и все остальное. Как и страх, как и гнев, как и вожделение. То есть до тех пор, пока мы не достигли тела человека, ревность чрезвычайно нужна, и даже на ранних стадиях тела человека ревность абсолютно нужна. Она действительно входит в набор инструментов так называемого механизма защиты продолжения рода, который обеспечивает появление потомства. Именно у вас потомство, а не у соседа, понимаете? Вот. И вы должны сразу же понимать, что ничего не бывает только белого или черного. Другой разговор, что общая установка йоги, не нами должны управлять эти эмоции, а мы ими. Вот. И вот уже в связи с этим, уже разные оттенки ревности, да, уже разные они, гипотетические, которые запрограммированы в нас и должны сами собой всплывать. Неприятно девушке, когда она идет под руку, а ее юноша пялится на другую девушку. Девушка иногда себе даже не отдает себе отчета в этом. Что-то раз щелк в ее голове, и ей как-то неуютно становится. Та же самая ситуация, значит, не будем сейчас эти продолжать. Поэтому один момент, это просто хвосты механизма защиты продолжения рода. И если там девушка умная, она очень легко, красиво с этим работает. Если дура, тут уж ничего не поделаешь. Вот. А другой же разговор, когда есть, скажем, предпосылки для ревности, причины, да, то есть вот какие-то факты, это уже совсем другой разговор, и там уже другой момент. Так, ладненько, друзья, давайте, все, у нас есть еще что-нибудь?
Да. Дополнить
да.
о том, что ревность может быть полезна. Вот есть просто из лексических выражений, там, человек, например, ревностно относится к порученному заданию, то есть он вот выкладывается и...
Или помните это в Библии? «Я Господь твой, ревнив». Помните? Нет? Не читали? Смотрите, обратная сторона, еще раз, вот преданность, да? Преданность. Если нет преданности, будешь иметь дело с ревностью. мы сейчас больше сконцентрировались на отношениях мужчины и женщины, но не менее сильное ревностное отношение это к работе, к учебе, еще к чему-то. Да. Так, ладно, все, друзья, на сегодня все. Браво. Я прошу, да. Я прошу вас, напишите отзывы, потому что отзывы это наша реклама, по сути.